Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Discovering Dawson's Creek here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. How very exciting! What a craziness we're in for today. My goodness me!
Yeah, a lot happened.
It's all getting a little too much. I think is Dawson's Creek at the minute. Season 2 has definitely, I think, ramped up the intensity of events, shall we say, that go on in this particular show, one of which at the end of our second episode today, which is quite I suppose a nice way to end. It's nice that it's our second episode today. I think, as to be almost a finale of this Discovering Dawson Creek, but obviously not a particularly nice thing happens anyway. But we've just come off, obviously, Jack's big coming out parade. Not that it was a parade. It should have been a parade. Go and join the parades, Jack.
Yeah, he's a little hesitant. Yeah.
And then we had we've seemed to have had a couple of episodes of a bit more downer episodes, more not downer in terms of sadness or anything like that, but things have just coasted a little bit. Things have happened here and there, interesting little relationship developments that you always expect, and then to be hit with, I think, everything that happens in episode 18 of season 2 is another fairly massive one, to be honest with you. And obviously, this is about right, because as I've said in the last couple of episodes of Discovering Dawson's Creek, I feel very much emotionally fully invested now. I'm with everybody.
Like that.
I feel what everybody feels, and cannot really imagine how the finale of episode 18 is going to impact going forward. It'd be very interesting to see how that actually does happen. And what exactly happens following it. I think it's going to be fairly traumatic for at least one person. Unfortunately, given that, Jen seems all right in these couple of episodes. She seems pretty secure, seems pretty happy. We see her in episode 17 even develop her relationship with Grams.
A little bit of bonding more with the two of them, and in a kind of a cute way. But she still is kind of on the fringes of the friend group. Like, there were little bits to ease her kind of back in, working with Dawson on the film, and now that has kind of been done and he's kind of fully committed to getting Joey back, she's kind of now on the outskirts of that.
But it's almost like, does she even mind being on the outskirts of that? I suppose to a degree.
Yeah, I think there's like a little pang in her, because she always makes these little kind of comments about how, I guess I'm just not part of the inner circle. So she makes these little comments that I think it does kind of deep down get to her. But I think she's fairly independent, that she can find ways to use her time, which she does to a very detrimental degree that we see.
Yes, a fairly tragic degree. And of course, those that know Dawson's Creek and are watching and listening to this will, of course, know what we're talking about in vague terms. But if you are following along with us, I mean, do let us know if you are doing that, how very exciting that would be. We are speaking particularly vaguely at the minute, although you've probably just watched it as well, so we might not be speaking very vaguely. Janine, should we just get straight on into it?
Yes, let's do it.
Episode 17 of season 2, Psychic Friends, which there's a funfair carnival that comes to town. Well, not the town, I suppose it's not that, is it? It's like a summer fair situation.
I was trying to remember, why is this called Psychic Friends again? But
Because there's
there's
a
an actual
sidekick.
sidekick. Yes, I completely forgot about
That's why.
that. So, Psychic Friends, episode 217, Follow Your Heart.
Oh, yes.
Dawson's confidence as a filmmaker is shaken when his new teacher turns out to be a movie studio executive on sabbatical in Cape Side and tells Dawson the painful truth about his amateur movie. The future is unsure for Joey as well when a fortune teller advises her to be open to every new opportunity that crosses her path. And she stumbles into Colin, a gorgeous photographer who brings out Joey's free spirited side during a wild photo shoot.
Yes. A wild photo shoot. Now, let's start off. I think with Dawson. To be honest, it is Dawson's Creek. It is not.
Yeah, we get kind of a fun opening here.
We do
This.
a little
uh,
bit. It's weird.
yes, Dawson is screening his movie for Joey. We get to the end of it and she's having this very emotional reaction. She's crying. She's talking about it being like the peak of cinema and it's so much perfection. And everybody's going to be talking about the great director Jack McPhee. And Dawson's like, what are you talking about, Joey? Like, I directed this movie. Oh, Jack, they're going to be saying his name amongst the great directors, Spielberg, Bergman, McPhee. Dawson's like, what is happening? And then Jack comes through the window and he's like, oh, Steven Spielberg was like walking through the cafeteria and he invited me to Hollywood to make a movie.
I mean, how hilariously sad is all this episode?
Right? And Dawson's just stood there like, what is happening? And Jack is like, oh, Joey, I'm so excited. And they start like making out. And then he gets down on one knee and proposes to her. And Dawson is like, I thought you were gay. And he's like, I guess not. Him and Joey start making out again. And then they just leave. He's like, Joey, like, what about us? And she's like, dude, you're not my type. Like, good luck. Kind of thing. And then he wakes up and it's obviously a terrible dream.
A terrible dream. I like that it's Dawson's Creek having fun with itself.
Yeah.
I like it when it's able to have fun with itself because it can be such a emotionally heavy kind of draining show almost because you never get any rest from anything. There's always
all the self-serious deepness. Yes. And I mean, it's kind of how the movie teacher describes Dawson's movie, just a bunch of kind of kids, being melodramatic and using $10 words. And like, I love when Kevin Williamson kind of pokes fun at things that he's actually doing in the show, and he kind of makes fun of it through different avenues. But also again, yes, and it, like, I think I talk about it a lot. Like there's a little nugget of something that could be a throwaway thing or something that we don't think will really be addressed later, and it is. Like I think when Jack calls Joey out about what she said about wanting to find herself, but then she's over here telling him how she misses kissing somebody. And then she's like, oh, I regret ever saying that. So like, we're not forgetting, like, because it could feel that way, that they set up this whole like, big reason for her to break up with Dawson because we needed her to break up with Dawson. And then she gets with Jack and that kind of undermines her whole big reason. So we had moments where Dawson reminded her of that. Like, you need to go find yourself. And now here you are in a relationship with Jack. And now even Jack is calling out as well. Like you made this whole big grandstand about finding yourself, and now you're over here talking about how you want to kiss somebody. And then she like finally laments like, oh, I regret ever saying that. So I like that, we're holding true to calling out things that like feel like they maybe weren't earned in the beginning. So.
Yeah. No, it needs that for it to not feel just soapy for soapy's sake.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't like. about the show. I feel I am invested because it is a little bit aware of what it's doing,
Mhm.
because it is not just cheap soap opera and cheap melodrama.
Yeah.
It is more than that. It's worth more than that. It does more than that. It speaks to more than that.
Yeah.
But obviously, this particular episode is it's probably the lesser of these two episodes we're talking about today, but that's,
Yeah.
I think, because so much intensity happens in a perfect wedding, episode
Yeah.
18 of season 2, that this kind of just feels like a little bit of a small development for everybody to get to, get a bit further in their
Yeah, I
emotional
think
story. Dawson goes through some more struggles with his movie, which I find hilarious. But and also, why's a Hollywood executive on sabbatical in Cape
in
Side
Cape
for
Side.
places
Yeah,
seems a bit
that's like
odd.
kinda yeah. Um, so yeah, he's getting this kind of big time, studio perspective from this woman, and so he really, um, values her opinion because they kind of get on really well, like, they have good
Yeah,
conversation, and he talks about how he's really excited that she's there, and, she kind of mentions that, his dad is now subbing at the school because, Dawson harping on about his dad get a job, so he's substituting at the
yeah.
school now. And so this teacher kind of seems to know about him making this movie, and he's like, "How do you know?" It's like, "Oh, your dad was just bragging about you and how talented you are and what a great filmmaker you're going to be and all these things." So we kind of hint that Mitch has been kind of talking to this lady, which plays
Oh,
into
yes.
something in the next episode. But yeah, he's really excited she's there. They have good conversation. She seems encouraging and asks if she could see his movie, and so he's like happy to show it to her. And then she ultimately watches it and she's like, "It's fine." And he's like, "Well, no, tell me what you really think." And she's like, "Are you sure?" Like, it's going to be brutal honesty. And he's like, "No, I want your true thoughts." And then she kind of just talks about how derivative it is and it's very unoriginal. And it's just a bunch of
Yeah,
kids kind of talking, sitting around, being melodramatic and, just kind of really laying it out there that it's nothing really special and it's not really saying anything. And obviously, I think Dawson, he tries to act like he could take that criticism well, but he obviously gets a little I think he holds back as much as Dawson can, but you can tell
yeah. He's not
he's a bit
somebody that can
yeah,
handle that.
yeah, so you can tell he's a bit wounded and a bit defensive. And now kind of forms this opinion about her like, "Oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about," kind of energy.
Well, it's
Um
because he's gone through his entire life being the center of everybody's world and
Yes, and everyone kind of closest
thinking
to him
that,
telling him it's the greatest thing.
yeah,
So,
and thinking that he is the greatest thing. I mean, Dawson Leary's level of, you know, self confidence, I
yeah.
suppose, is outrageous. I mean, we all wish we had these levels of self confidence, don't we? I don't
Yes.
think I've ever come across anybody with as
Yes,
much self
and
confidence,
and
but
when
as much
it
fragile self confidence
yes, it's
that he has.
very fragile because when, any kind of doubt kind of creeps in, he doesn't know how to handle it and just gets incredibly
No,
whiny about it.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean,
and
that's
very
pretty much
defensive.
yes, and so that's pretty much Dawson's story also. I think there's a bit of building to this idea that he gets a little jealous of Joey spending so much time with Jack in terms of now him,
Yeah, just as
where Joey was kind of getting jealous of the friendship thing kind of forming between Dawson and Jen, and her feeling
yeah,
like she's being replaced by Jen. Now it's happening here where Dawson feels like the friendship aspect, at least, of him and Joey's relationship, is being taken over by Jack because she'll go to Jack first and tell him things, or look over and see them like laughing together and
yeah,
stuff like that. And she's kind of being in a weird place with him because he's confessed that he loves her and she's still kind of saying she's not quite ready. She needs to know if she can be a whole person on her own before she delves back into this deep entanglement with Dawson because she doesn't really she's still, I get her point. Like Dawson isn't any other guy, like, and I still kind of get why she went with Jack, because he is something different from Dawson. She doesn't know who she is without Dawson, so that is still what she's trying to
No.
figure out. So it's less of
Yes.
like I'm trying to find myself, and more I need to like know who I am away from you, because you've been entangled in every aspect of my life for my whole life. And
Well,
so
that's the thing with them,
even
right?
Jack was a new exploration. So it wasn't solely about not dating anybody and to find yourself. It was kind of separating yourself from the thing that kind of has been entangled in you and has been made a huge part of kind of who you think you are.
Yeah.
That you've lost a bit of figuring out your own identity. So she kind
That
of puts Dawson in this pause. Like she makes it clear that obviously there's feelings there, and she wants to be with him at some point, and she does love him, but she needs to know who she is without him.
yeah.
And so that's kind of where their relationship sits. Dawson wanting her back, revealing that to her, but her still in this zone of like, I need to know who I am without you.
This is the really difficult thing with the two of them, because here we are in an episode that talks about soulmates quite a bit, because
Yeah.
there's this fair going on. They go to this psychic fortune teller,
Yeah.
and it's all about, there are people who are inextricably linked to each other.
Yeah.
And Jack talks about soulmates to Joey and how he does believe in that. He doesn't believe in perfect love, but he believes in soulmates. That comes in episode 18
Yes.
as well, doesn't it? But there's all these conversation about this sort of thing going on, really hammering home this point that Dawson and Joey are just one. And as much as it might, they might have to feel like separate people together, which is obviously what a relationship is. It is two separate people coming together. There is just a very singular feeling about Dawson and Joey that is just, it's always Dawson and Joey. You might as well call them Doey or Jawsome. They're just one person.
Yes. And so, yes, that's why she needs to kind of figure out who she is as Joey without Dawson. And I think she's kind of had a plenty of time to be out of a relationship with Dawson, that
Yeah.
she's been able to figure things out and meet new people and explore new things. And so I think she's almost ready, because I think even, Dawson told her last, well, hurry up, because I'm in love with you and I want to be with you. So, get to finding yourself so that we can be together, basically.
Yeah.
So
she meets this photographer guy, Colin.
Yeah, so she admits to Jack that like she kind of just misses the feeling of kissing somebody.
Yeah.
And so when she goes to the psychic, they tell her, you're going to meet somebody tall, dark, and handsome, and all of that kind of thing. So she's like, this lady's crazy. Nothing's going to happen. And then here's this really handsome guy looking at her art in her booth. And he's kind of like touching her face and telling her how gorgeous she is, and that he wants to photograph her, as he's a photographer. And so, yeah, Jack goes with her to do this whole kind of fun little photo shoot, and she's kind of thinking, "Oh, maybe this can be my tall, dark, handsome stranger that I can just have like fun little kissy time with." And like old Joey probably wouldn't be that way. So this is already kind of a nice little cue that Joey is growing and wanting,
there's no nervousness anymore.
Yes, she's kind of becoming more bold with those types of things and all of that. So, like, I think she was even she was probably going to have sex with Jack if they were still a couple, because she was planning that nice romantic dinner and all that whole kind of thing. And I think there was even an attempt, but obviously Jack couldn't, perform. So that was kind of their reasoning for why it didn't happen that whole night when it was that situation. So
there is a clear lack of the nervousness that was there in Joey. There's a clear development of boldness, a clear development of being able to take charge of situations that I don't think she doesn't quite realize herself. She might realize a little bit in the next episode, because it's kind of forced upon her a bit more.
Yeah.
And ultimately she realizes she's capable of handling it, as tough as it may be. But there is and there has been a more of an ability to just take charge of situations from her that we never saw in season 1. She was very, very passive, very, very just everybody's go-to kind of, I'm going to go to you and you're going to be there to comfort. You're not your own person without everybody else.
Yeah.
And she keeps saying in this season she wants to be her own person, aside from Dawson, aside from other people. She wants to be on her own. And she doesn't quite realize how far she's come yet.
Yeah.
Because she has actually come quite far. And that is what this episode does really quite well.
Yeah.
Is explore that a bit more. And the photographer, I find the whole situation quite hilarious, because not only is his name Colin Manchester, which I think is just funny anyway, but Colin Manchester as a name sounds like such a false name.
Yeah, like
it sounds like a name you would just the fakest, most let's
try to like a handsome man in a romance novel, like the Fabio on the cover. His name is Colin Manchester.
Exactly what he is.
Yeah.
I'm a Chinese video game who is trying to come up with an English person's name. Oh, let's call him Colin Manchester. That's what it sounds like.
Yes. I mean, well, that actually sounds more Britishy, like a fake British name to me.
It does sound like a fake British name. No, it does. It does. Absolutely. Which is why it just seems silly.
Yes. But yeah, I know she's
also really very, very intense.
Yes, like how much he's touching her face and telling her how beautiful she is and all these kinds of things. So she thinks that this is like flirting. Ooh, kind of. So yeah, she does go to do the photo shoot. She's kind of shy at first, but then she opens up and Jack is there also kind of giving encouragement. And while they're doing the photo shoot, the guy kind of turns.
Yeah, because Jack's like, this dude's hot.
Totally into you. Yeah. And I love kind of their friendship of, they're in school at the lunch desk table and like she's pointing out guys and kind of like, oh, he's a Frank as in Frankenstein, and he's a Leo as in Leonardo DiCaprio, and like her and she's kind of judging guys for Jack, and so they're like, and they obviously look at each other like, this is kind of weird, but like I don't mind it. Like I like that we're easing into this kind of friendship. And Jack does kind of express his fears and his shyness and hesitation to kind of jump right in because, he's still kind of new at this. And so he doesn't really know how to navigate it.
Is he just the stereotype of the gay best friend now?
I mean, that's kind of where it's leaning. But he goes down some really interesting paths later. I will say.
He's already done that. I mean, how much?
No.
What else could happen?
Well, it's kind of funny. I want to say it's the beginning of season 3. Like, Dawson goes away for the summer. He comes back and like everyone's kind of doing something that doesn't seem like them. Jack included. Yeah, it's a kind of a funny twist on things. But yeah, he kind of has put himself in that position as gay best friend, but he does express these fears and hesitations to delve into it. And even like, I think Joey makes fun of him for not having good gaydar, and he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I should have taken that course on it. He doesn't know how to do it. So it's something he kind of has to build up to, which is something that is established in this episode. So yeah, they're doing the photo shoot and they're having a good time. And Colin turns to Jack and says, oh, are you guys together? And he's like, oh, no, we're not together. And so he obviously takes that as a cue of, oh, he must be into Joey. So when the photo shoot's kind of all done, he goes to hug Joey and Joey kind of motions for Jack to leave. Like, this is going to be the moment where I get to have my little makeout session. And then he doesn't go to kiss her and then proceeds to ask her if Jack is single. So, yes,
Joey
is gay.
Joey basically seems to attract gay people.
Gay men, yes, apparently.
Gay men.
And so she goes to Jack and he's like, "Oh, so what happened?" And she tells him, "Well, he's gay." So that's when she tells him, like, your gaydar is off, or you need to work on your gaydar or whatever.
I wonder if there's going to be a big reveal eventually that actually all this is just because Dawson's actually gay, and it's just all this horrible thing for Joey to just all these men I love just end up being gay. Like, I don't know what's wrong.
I'm not gonna tell you that happens. I have teased
because
you
it doesn't, or it does. Ooh.
Well, I have teased you that Jack does end up with someone familiar, and it's very interesting at the end. By the end of everything,
Yeah,
so, yeah, yes,
okay.
But yeah, so she tells Jack, he's actually gay and he was interested in you. So I told him you were gonna meet him at like 11 o'clock or whatever. And Jack's like, no, and he gets pissed because he's very kind of scared to delve into this. Like, so he's really nervous. And so he gets upset with her. And ultimately he doesn't meet with the guys. Joey ends up going, and her and him kind of have this nice conversation. And yeah, so I mean, did you think Jack was gonna actually go and see this guy and
not at this stage
delve into?
No. I thought it would have been a bit. I mean, who am I to say how sudden things can happen in Dawson's Creek? I mean, for God's sake, everything seems to happen quite suddenly and nobody sits in any sort of emotion for any length of time whatsoever in the show. But I did not think Jack was just immediately going to go after a handsome gay man. The episode after he's big, or like 2 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I think Joey says at the lunch table that it's been like a month, so they're kind of setting up a timeline for us. Yeah,
it does seem a bit quick.
Yeah,
to me, it would have done. So I'm glad it doesn't. Come to that, really. Even though I think there is acknowledgement there from Jack that Colin is a very attractive man. Because frankly, he is.
Yes.
You get a lot of Joey and Jack in this episode.
Yeah.
Aside from the Dawson whining about his movie being criticized by a genuine Hollywood. Oh, and also, let's also point out, please, it's not a studio movie to begin with. This movie. So why is the studio executive? Why is he taking the studio executive's word so seriously? Like, surely you don't think this is a studio movie, Dawson. This is a severely
a small budget independent little thing, and like for her to talk about like how it looks and that all that was like, lady, do you know what you're talking about? Yeah. But we do
expecting at least tens of millions to be spent on movies. This has been made for what, $3,000?
Yeah, a couple $1,000. Yeah, and I think he split it with Joey, so it's not even like
right. Yeah,
it's not even that much. But yeah, and then he ultimately does see her get in the car with his dad. So now he's like, oh, great, what's going on with this? But yeah, and then he looks over and he sees Jack and Joey like having this grand old time. So yeah, Dawson kind of in a place of like, oh, things are slipping away from me a little bit. But yeah, I like that we got to see this friendship dynamic, like, Joey kind of bummed that she didn't get her kiss, and so Jack, kisses her on the forehead, and they kind of just like cuddle up and comforts her and that kind of thing. So really nice. But
really nice.
Colin is not the only one who would be getting stood up in
this
episode.
No.
So Grams and Jen have a booth at this place, and this old man comes up to Grams and says, "Oh, hey, Evelyn, remember me?" And it's some guy that she knew from back in the day. And, he's talking about how beautiful she looks, and brings her a rose and says, "Meet me such and such for a date." And,
Jen's very excited.
Yes, but Grams is very hesitant about it, but she agrees. And then she's very much like, I've made the decision that that part of my life was over. And Jen is like,
Yeah,
no,
when
it doesn't have to be like,
Gramps died.
yes. And she kind of made that decision that she was done. But I like that Jen reminds her that, like, it doesn't have to be the end. Because I think, like, I don't think it's something she genuinely feels. I think it's just she just decided that, like, at a certain age, that's kind of what it has to be.
Yeah, I think this could be a thing though, can't it? I mean, it's worth. It doesn't. I don't think it explores this kind of idea in any great detail
Yeah.
in this episode. Whether it does in the future with Grams, I don't know. Whether this wit guy comes back, I don't know. I would like to see a story of this nature. I think
Yeah,
to a degree.
we will get some Dayton Grams down the
Okay,
line
well
a little
that's
bit.
good. I
Yeah, we'll
like
get
that
some
because I
Dayton
think
Grams.
it's worth exploring that idea of, you've been with somebody, married to somebody for decades, and is there a life after that for the widow?
Yeah.
Is there a life after that?
Yeah.
Many people's ideologies would be, you now live a life of mourning. That is the respectful thing to do. That is the commendable thing to do. What a great life you had together. What a great life you've had since showing your love. What a staple of an
Yeah,
image
and you can
of
just hang your
great
hat on that. That
forever
just
love.
yes, and just leave it at
But
that.
should it not also be this kind of
Why
new
not?
chapter, new life? You can't just wallow, even if it's might be
Yeah. And
respectful to wallow.
yes, and even if you feel like you're kind of done, it doesn't mean that you probably don't feel lonely in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
It's
Jen kind
whatever
of
you think about that, and
yes.
I don't
Yes.
think either way about that. I think it's down to the individual and the
Yeah,
couple
what they
and
want
whoever
and
they are.
like if how they want to kind of keep the legacy of their prior relationship and all that kind of thing. But Jen
Yeah,
encourages her because I think she sees it's more about Grams just feeling like she's done with that phase of her life more than she feels like some guilt over her husband.
yeah.
So Jen kind of says, "No, just do it, just go for it." And so she dyes her hair and gets her
Oh,
all
she gets all
cute.
done up.
Yes, and does her makeup, and so they have this kind of cute thing. And then Grams goes there to meet him, and then she's there alone, and Jen sees her, and she's like, "What happened?" Like, "Oh, his wife got sick, and so he had to leave." And she's like, "Wife?" So this
Yeah.
man was, double dipping. Uh,
Was he though? Was he though? I mean, probably yes, but was he? Was he? Did he not just want to go for dinner with an old friend from school?
I mean, he was pretty flirty. He brought her that
He was very,
rose. He was
very
talking
flirty. He
her up,
was,
and he
yes.
presented that outing as a date. So,
He did,
um, yes. So,
yes.
Jen is like, "Oh my gosh, Grams, I'm so sorry." She's like, "Oh no, I'm fine." Like, she is mature enough to kind of handle this bit of
Yeah.
rejection. So yeah, just a nice kind of bonding situation. We got to see a nice
Mm.
Grams.
Glams, we'll call her. We'll call her Glam.
Yes. So, well, my mom is actually glammy to my nephew. So,
Ah, well, this makes
yes.
sense. This makes
Yes.
sense. I like that.
So yeah, a nice little bonding moment for the two of them because it's always nice to see their relationship grow and grow because it was so contentious to start. So when we
Mm.
get these glimmers of this really nice bond forming, it's nice between the two of them.
It is.
Um,
It is.
yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything that
It is in
pertains
episode
to this episode.
17 because it was just this kind of almost realization episode.
Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit of Pacey and Andy, but they've kind of just been in the
Not too
periphery.
much. Yeah, not too.
Yeah, like this fortune teller told her that like all the bad things in her life are gonna kind of only compound and get worse, and she kind of takes that to heart, and it's all
The last thing
crazy.
she needs to hear.
Yes, and so Pacey kind of has to quell those fears, and he kind of tells off the fortune teller lady,
Mm.
and she kind of clocks him that you act like a little boy, and you
Yeah.
know you still kind of live in that and all that kind of thing. And Pacey's like, oh gosh, and gets kind of like she's kind of hitting it on the nose. So yeah, like nothing too big with the two of them in this episode. But yeah, that's kind of
No,
yeah. It was just very much like a transition build upon relationships kind of
it
episode. It
was.
seemed like yeah.
It was, because this next one, season 2,
Mm.
episode 18, A Perfect Wedding, is a monstrous episode
Woo!
where
Yeah.
so much happens. Get into the synopsis. The binder's back out.
Yes. Okay. A Perfect Wedding 218. Love will keep us together.
Will it now?
Yes. Joey is distraught when her just paroled father will be making his reintroduction into society by catering a posh wedding attended by all of the blue bloods of Cape Side. But the drama at the ceremony pales in comparison to the night's tragic end. And his mom, uh, Dawson and his mom share a pep talk about her desire to win Mitch back.
Mm.
Um, but his new squeeze Nicole gets in the way. While Abby and Jen, because they put parentheses with all the actors' names next to everything, so it's like hard to
I
read.
see. Yeah.
Because it's
Is it
like
very
Dawson, James
confused?
Vanderbeek, and his mom, Mary-Margaret Humes, share a pep talk with Mitch, John Wesley Shipp. So I have to like read around the parentheses.
We don't need that. We don't need
Every
all that.
time we don't need it. Dawson and his mom share a pep talk about her desire to win Mitch back. But Mitch's new squeeze, Nicole, and then they even list the guest actress and all her credits.
Oh, for God's sake.
Natch and Amick, Twin Peaks, Fantasy Island stands in their way, while Abby, Monica Keena, and Jen, Michelle Williams, decide
for
to
goodness
crash the
sake.
wedding for a little excitement. And Pacey, Joshua Jackson, tries to put a chink in Andie's Meredith Monroe's armor of cynicism.
The synopsis are becoming silly.
Yes. And then it's still at the
Too
end
much.
names all the other actors, like Bessie's actor and all that, and Kerr Smith,
too
Jack,
much.
and yeah. So it's hard to read. So when I'm struggling, it's because I'm reading around all these parentheses of names and things.
Well, first and foremost, I think we need to get into the fact that Mike Potter is back in town.
Yeah. So we saw him at the end of season 1.
Yes, and it
Joey
was
went to
very
go
emotional.
visit
I
him, and it was
enjoyed
very
the episode a great
yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
I really did. It was right at the very end. It felt very, very pleasant and understanding, you know, and difficult.
Yeah.
But there is care there from both parties. So obviously
Yeah.
this comes out of nowhere. This is ridiculously sudden, you know, that he just turns back up. Nobody was made aware of this at
Yeah,
all.
no, he's paroled, and then Joey wakes up and he's there making breakfast, and him and Bessie have been talking all morning, making these plans on how to revamp the ice house and bring more money in and pay off their debts and be a real family again. You know,
Yeah.
he's there like, oh, here, come take my grandson and let me hold my grandson and all this whole kind of
Yeah.
thing. And
A lot.
apparently,
It's a lot.
yes. And so there's this big wedding in town, and their caterer fell through. So he volunteered for the ice house to cater this wedding, and that's going to be their new kind of thing. So he has all these big dreams and plans, but Joey's just kind of like in shock because she doesn't know how to take all of this in. It's like a lot to process because she has some very complicated feelings about her dad that she doesn't really have to think about because he's not there, but now he's there. So how does she navigate all of this? And, you know, the ice house is not, you know, this 5-star thing. So are
No.
they even capable of doing, you know, these grand things that he's proposing? And on top of that, she's just, you know, worried about the gossip mill churning up again because, you know, obviously he's been, you know, out of sight, out of mind. The town has kind of forgotten about the scandals. But, you know, knowing that he was this drug dealer and cheated on his wife who had cancer and all this whole kind of thing, it's the talk of the town. So Joey, I don't think, is ready to face this criticism all over again. So it's a lot for her. And so kind of the first person she runs into is Jack, and he gives her some great advice and tells her, you know, I think you just need to deal with this and talk to him before you guys kind of jump into this crazy thing. Otherwise, it's going to, you know, just overwhelm you. So he gives her some really
Yeah.
good advice. He's there to listen to her. And when she's kind of in spiraling, he gets her to kind of calm down and see all sides of the situation. And then Jack kind of haphazardly mentions it to Dawson, thinking that she must have told Dawson, but he had no idea that Mr. Potter was back and all this.
Yeah.
So then that's another kind of ping at Dawson where, we already saw glimmers of him feeling jealous of the relationship with Jack. But now that he knows that Jack has this big tidbit of information before he does, that just adds to it as well. So,
yeah. Especially because obviously Jack has no relationship whatsoever with Mr. Potter, and Dawson does at least have a familiar relationship.
yeah, because he's the one who kind of talked to him, I think, because the first time they went up there, she didn't wanna see him or talk to
Yeah.
him, so Dawson
Yeah.
talked to him, they had a nice talk, and he said, "Tell me about my daughter. Who is she? What's she
Yeah.
like? Tell me about her." So they had that kind of nice moment,
But they'd have
and
obviously known each other from
yes,
early
yeah.
childhood anyway.
Yes, but I think in recent times,
Yeah.
that is kind of the recent like, the last conversation he had with Dawson was obviously this nice pleasant thing, um, you know, so, um, yeah, so Mr. Potter's all about, come back for the family. We're going to be great. He's at the ice house helping out, testing out recipes for this wedding. And then, Dawson comes and talks to Joey, checks on her to see if she's okay. She admits to him, oh, I was spiraling a little bit, but Jack talked me down. But of course, she has to like also follow that up with, I was looking for you, but I saw Jack
Yes.
first and that kind of thing. So that
But it's
Dawson
also, I
gets
think that
feelings hurt.
it is that, but I also think it is Joey wanting that to have been the case as well, because Joey is, I think, becoming a little bit more open and realizing that really it was all very silly to break up with Dawson in the first place, which is what I've been saying the entire time
Yes, and
anyway.
and I appreciate them at least trying to justify it with, her feeling dumb for even kind of having that thought process that, she does need to kind of find an identity separate from Dawson. Like they justified it with these reasonings, but ultimately, like all roads lead back to Dawson. So,
Exactly.
and again, yeah. But we did talk in the last episode that we've seen some growth from her, and who knows if she would have
Oh
had
yeah.
that growth had she stayed with Dawson.
I mean, that's very true. That's very true. But
Yes.
you realize yourself, don't you? I suppose, which
Yeah.
is what's happening to Joey a great deal in these couple of episodes, being, battered with her father coming back into
Yeah.
her life is a serious thing that's taken
It's
up
a
an
lot.
awful
It's
lot of
huge.
brain energy.
Yes.
But
And
it is mixed in. It is mixed in with all this.
yes, the
Maybe
town
Dawson
gossip.
actually should be happening.
Yes, and the town gossip and, um, you know, if they can even succeed at this big thing that he's kind of pushing on them. So it's all these things. And like we even see and at the ice house, the two people kind of talking about her dad. Oh, yeah, I don't think they
Yeah,
should let him back in the town. They should lock him back up. He's a drug
yeah,
dealer and all this kind of thing. And so Joey has to sit and overhear this. And she's kind of trying to just push it down and ignore it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what she's dealing with. And I think she also reveals later about a friend she had who, uh was her like good friend. And then as soon as her father got arrested, she overheard the girl talking
that's
about
right.
her and her dad. And, instead of saying something to the girl, she just went and smiled in her face, you know, like everything was fine. So that girl
Bottling in the emotions again.
yes. So it's
That's
just kind of
ridiculous.
it's kind of setting up that this is kind of how she's choosing to deal with this until she does kind of have this big outburst and her father overhears her. So they
Yeah,
are catering this wedding. They've asked, Andie, Pacey, um, to Dawson, all to help be servers at this wedding. And so that's kind of when Jen is like, oh, they didn't invite me. They didn't ask me to come.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Jen, she's been kind of on the straight and narrow, hanging out with Churchy Boy, helping with
Oh
Dawson's
yeah,
movie, hanging out with Graham. So she hasn't really done any fun kind of stuff. So she feels like she's in a bit of a funk. So I think she kind of goes to Abby and is like, hey, I kind of want to have some fun tonight. Do you want to hang out kind of thing? And
And
so
Abby's
Abby,
usually her usual terrible self before she realizes that actually it might be worth
but
doing.
genuine friendship stuff, because there were glimmers
Yeah,
of genuine friendship between her and Jen.
glimmers,
Yes,
small, slight glimmers
yes. Um,
behind all the evil.
yes. So there were glimmers of an actual friendship there where she actually kind of liked Jen. Um, so they decide to hang out and they're like dancing in her room, and then I think Abby asked kind of like, "Where's the rest of your little crew?" And she's like, "Oh, they're all like working at this wedding across town, and I guess I wasn't invited." So obviously, Jen,
Mm,
has these feelings about being kind of on the outskirts of this group.
yeah,
Um, and so Abby's like, "Well, what if we just get dressed up and we crash it? Cute guys in tuxedos, free champagne." And, Jen's hesitant because she's like in the middle. So it's not like she's all reckless and crazy like Abby. She does kind of has reforged the bonds with those people, with the
yeah.
Dawson Joey side of things. So, she does consider them her friends. So she's kind of on the fence about it, but she decides ultimately, yeah, fine, let's do it.
Yeah.
Um
Well, which I mean, she shouldn't have done really, should she? But you can understand why it does happen, why it
mhm.
gets to that. Where it gets to, where it eventually gets to, I think is purely accidental, sure,
Oh yeah.
but
Mhm.
you can understand why it gets to this point of, yeah, from Jen of, yeah, let's go, let's just mess around. I need let off a bit of steam.
Yeah,
Abby's
she's
great
like,
to
"I'm
do that
determined."
with.
Yes,
Let's just
Abby's
do
gonna
it.
be the person I can do that with, but I'm still not going to play into any of the negative things she has to say
No,
about Andy or Dawson or Joey
and
or anything
and
like
even
that.
and even their two's story in this entire episode is obviously very, very separate
Yeah.
to everything else that's going on, because everybody else is
Everybody
part
else is
of the
in
catering
this wedding. Yes, and they're all kind of in the mix of something different. So, Joey is upset with her father because, the food is late and it's a big rush,
Yeah.
and,
I mean, Joey's
Andy.
essentially running the show, which I'd like to also
Yes.
point out is something she would have never have done at the start of the season, and is now, maybe because she feels responsibility,
Yeah.
or there is a certain willingness there, she is stepping up a great deal to actually
Yeah.
run this catering organization, to make everybody, to really push the image, not only of the Ice House, not only to do it for herself, her dad, everybody else,
Yeah.
but just for, because it's the right thing to
Mhm.
do. And I don't think we would have seen such proactivity from Joey before this.
Yes, but when things kind of start to feel like they're going wrong, like, Andy is kind of making this big gesture, knocks the top off the cake. The food's not ready yet, so she starts panicking. Bessie's trying to calm her down,
Yeah,
and all of that kind of builds up all this kind of stuff that she was trying to keep in. It gets built up and then just spews out of her just talking about he thinks he can come and fix his family in one day, and that's impossible.
yeah,
And starts kind of bashing him, like all these kind of unsaid feelings about what he did and what he thinks he can do for them, and
yeah.
him putting
And you
them in
get
his
it.
position. Yeah, and him just trying to play happy family after everything he did, kind of thing. So she's saying all of this, and then Bessie kind of looks and then kind of scurries off and turns
This is
around.
only because, though, she didn't take Jack's advice and speak to her father before all this started
Before, no,
happening.
she waited and said everything's fine. It's not a big deal. And so she kind of has this outburst and he hears her and just kind of, goes back to cooking
Yeah.
because like what can he do?
They end
So
up having their incredibly emotional conversation with each other
yeah.
during the wedding,
Yes.
basically, don't they? And I mean, it is a hell of a scene. It's a hell of a conversation. They
Yes,
have,
I told you the dads of Dawson's Creek always kind of bring a little something something. Uh
yeah. I mean, he is, for being, or for a person that has done some pretty bad things, Mr. Potter,
mhm.
we don't forgive cheating on your dying wife. I mean, it's a bit
Yeah.
much, right?
That's
It's
rough. Yeah. Yeah,
really rough.
that's a rough thing.
Yet
Um
there's such a humanity about him. There is
mhm.
such a a
An
realness about
earnestness.
him, an
Yes.
earnestness about him
Yeah.
that you do feel a level of sympathy. You do feel like he
Is remorseful and
is remorseful, yes, and wants to be a good person, which is at least you've got to commend anybody that at least wants to be good.
wants to step into that. Yes. So yeah, they do have a great productive conversation where she kind of basically tells him that, I am willing to start again and make us a family and all that kind of thing. And I love you and all of that.
Yeah.
And while kind of that stuff is going on, Pacey and Andie kind of have a thing where Andie is very cynical about big grand wedding stuff
Yes,
and
apparently.
yes, and Pacey is kind of more into it, so he's trying to get her to see the ceremony and feel something and express this kind of swoony love over a wedding, which
Yeah.
Andie's just not doing. So the whole kind of time they're having this kind of back and forth, and as they're having a bit of an argument, she knocks over the top of the cake. So she and
She's so on
Pacey,
edge all the time.
yeah, she's very just kind of neurotic and hyperactive, and obviously, all the things that she's going through,
Yeah.
don't help and exacerbate that. So, yeah, that's kind of their little bit of a light storyline. In terms of what's going on with them. So they're just trying to like fix the top of the cake and they ultimately fix it up and make it look nice. And Andie does get kind of emotional over the wedding.
Mm.
So
She
mission
reveals, doesn't she,
accomplished.
that it's actually all been a bit of an act, and she does love weddings. She's very
Yes,
sentimental.
very
She just
sentimental
didn't
about
want to be like that because it was all too much.
yes. So we get that kind of a cute little resolution for them as they are kind of these looming background characters. But Andie will go through
Weirdly, given the amount of stuff Pacey's done in the season, that these 2 episodes are giving him a bit of time to just chill out a bit, to
yes. Yeah.
just be a bit secure and safe and
and
pleasant
en-
and
and
content.
enjoy your relationship and all that kind of thing. Yeah. But the events at the end of this episode will affect
Mm.
Andie in a really interesting way. Like she'll get
Fair.
wrapped into stuff in a really interesting way going forward
Okay.
in this next
Interesting.
episode. Um but she ultimately ends up being the one who catches Jen and Abby in the wedding,
Yes.
drinking champagne, and she ultimately kicks them out. So that's kind of their story.
Oh, I see.
If
That's probably why Andy may feel a certain level of hate.
feelings. Yes, but also very conflicting because Abby was like one meanest to her in particular.
I mean,
She's very
obviously, yes.
yes. I mean, if we remember the election and things, like
Oh, it
Abby's
was
been
awful.
awful to
Yeah,
her.
it was
So,
awful.
so yeah, it makes for a really interesting dynamic. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah,
I think we're waiting to close on that.
as we should be.
Yes, and so when we move on to Dawson,
Well, he's dealing with that. He's dealing with the bride who has cold feet.
yes, so he runs into the bride who's in her little suite crying and doesn't want to get married because she doesn't know if this man is her soulmate.
It's a very
And
fancy wedding as
Dawson
well.
can't really yes, it's really nice. Dawson can't really help her, so then Jack kind of to the rescue, and he, convinces her and gives her this advice that you kind of had mentioned about the soulmates and, that, I don't believe in perfect love, but I do believe in
Yeah.
soulmates kind of thing. So, he tells the woman the right things, and she ultimately goes through with the wedding, and she's very happy, and thanks Jack. And then we see, in another scene when, Dawson, he's serving champagne, his mom walks in, and she makes this kind of grand statement to Dawson, I'm done. I'm done with this messing around. I'm
Mm,
gonna get your father back. And so Dawson's
yeah.
like, yeah, right on, mom. And he's really supportive. And then we see Mitch walk in with the teacher, with the film teacher lady.
Yes.
And
Who
yeah.
Dawson's not happy with in
No,
any
that it's her because she criticized his movie. And Gail's face just drops and she's
it
kind of
does.
really hurt by that. Um, so yeah,
But
a more
are we like are we sympathetic towards Gail? Should Mitch not be moving on?
I
Is
mean,
this not Mitch being
it's
a little bit proactive and furthering his
and
life?
yes, and kind of moving forward, and like, Dawson kind of tries to tell him something, and he's like, "Well, she's nice and funny, and I like spending time with her. So your mother's just gonna have to get over that," kind of thing. So it's a very complicated both sides because I think Mary Margaret Humes is great with Gail in terms of making her still endearing, and even when
Yeah,
she's giving her speech in that first season explaining the affair, like I had everything I wanted and I just wanted to want again. Like when that's always been something
mhm,
I just kind of remembered. The fact that she could sell that's the reason why she did that, and it
it's
making sense somehow.
yeah, it's
Um
a very, very interesting perspective to think about, isn't it? That sort of thing.
Yes, because you don't think like about the reason like I have the perfect life. Like, why would somebody with the perfect life do something like that? You just kind of feel maybe a bit stuck and you need something different. And she just,
Yeah,
she thought, if she could kind of play on the edge of losing everything, then she would have something to want. And, having
yeah,
this kind of thing that's separate from her life, her kind of very uh same all the time life, she would have something to want for. So yeah, like I think Gail has shown to be this very kind of likable, vulnerable, caring person who
yeah,
did who did this terrible thing. So I think, and at this point it's been quite a while of time, and the fact that Mitch had been looming around forgiving her and said he
mm,
forgives her and says he wants to try, but then doesn't try and kind of
yeah,
had been just dicking around, dicking her around this whole time. I think also makes us feel for Gail a little bit too. So yeah, I would say that I think how the actress has played this character, what we've seen from them trying to figure out this marriage, we are able to feel for Gail a little bit.
we are. Yeah, and I mean, by the end, she's even sharing a dance with Mike Potter. Um,
Yeah, so we kind of have this Dawson's dancing with his mom and Joey's dancing with her dad, and the food and the wedding and everything worked out, was a nice success. She's had this
yeah,
great conversation with her father. And then they switch partners. So Dawson and Joey are dancing, Mike and Gail are dancing, and it's and he was, and it's also like a nice step as well because I think he was very nervous to he admits to Joey that he was very nervous to kind of ingratiate himself into society again because of the
yeah,
judgment. And ultimately, it's kind of this show of force that like I'm back,
yeah.
and
He
he
goes out,
goes
doesn't
out
he? Gets
to dance.
changed out of his catering
Yeah.
gear, goes and puts a suit on, and comes back in. And
Yes.
Joey's
And
really proud of him at that point.
yes, and so then they share that dance, and so it's a kind of a proof to her that maybe things can be different. Maybe he is actually trying this time, this whole kind of thing. So they switch partners. So now Joey and Dawson are dancing. She's feeling great because things are going so well with her dad. And the night was a success, and she ultimately, she stepped up in a lot of ways. She was honest about things that were difficult for her, and I think that was kind of like finally her growth moment, that
Yeah,
she, ends up kissing Dawson and they're kind of back
yeah,
together, and things seem great. And so then we cut back now to Abby, or Andy has kicked Abby and Jen out of the wedding. Abby grabs a champagne bottle before she goes and says something snarky, and so they're on the pier, hanging out, drinking, laughing, drinking the champagne, and Abby, falls over and hits her head and then falls in the
yes.
water. Um,
Mm.
and Jen jumps in after her,
It's
and then
very. I I love how it isn't kind of. It's almost, you don't see the entire scene of either play out all as one.
yeah.
It's cut between, and I love
Mhm.
that it's cut between because you get such this calm success, positivity
Yeah, our
from the
leading
dancing,
couple is
from the wedding.
reconciling. The wedding went off
Yeah,
without a hitch. Joey made amends with her dad. All this
yeah.
whole kind of
The
thing. Yeah.
Mike's back in society, being accepted by other
Yeah.
people. Gail's a bit more content because she can just forget Mitch for a little bit. Mitch is feeling okay. Dawson and Joey are there dancing coming together, sharing this kiss on the dance floor. Pacey and Andie are all good.
Fixed they were struggling to fix the topper of the cake. They fixed it, made everything work out. Again, they're all kind of in their nice lovey-dovey space. Jack gets a nice thank you from the bride for his words to her. So everything is seeming great.
Jack's feeling content within himself as well now. He's kind of happy and not feeling overjudged or anything like that for being who he is. And all this is being cut between
Abby hitting her head and falling in the water. And so then at the end, we see Dawson and Joey kissing, reconciling. We're all happy. That's great. And then we cut to an ambulance and Jen wrapped in a blanket. And we see Abby on a stretcher, and they are zipping up her blue face into a body bag. So Jen jumped in after her because she had hit her head, so she probably just immediately drowned because she was
out
and concussed when she fell in the water, and Jen couldn't see her or find her and in time, and she drowned. So Abby Morgan is dead. It's crazy. And so the next episode is really just interesting because this is a character that we have hated from day one. So how are these people going to handle the death of someone that they genuinely disliked, that they downright hated? How are they going to handle that death? It's going to be very interesting.
I am just stunned by how sudden this came about, though. I really am. I mean, the devastation. This is Michelle Williams showing the kind of stuff she would go on to win Oscars for, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
This ridiculous levels of grim devastation that are on her face when she stood next to that ambulance at the very final scene when it pans out, fades to black.
Yeah.
It's awful. It is a gut punch, and you forget that the vast majority of this episode has been such an upper.
Great resolutions and positive things, and
it's been such a positive. It's been such a good feeling, really wholesome episode, to then just be smacked across the face, with this kind of stuff at the end in this intercut fashion of chaos and drowning, genuine drowning. I mean, it's awful. It's harsh. It is maybe the kind of melodrama that you would to be, was to be expected from a show of this kind. Some things occasionally come out of nowhere and it's ridiculously impactful.
Yeah.
Because there can be no build up to something like this because it is a purely accidental death.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it's a serious death to a 16-year-old who was drinking, who was at a wedding she shouldn't have been at.
Yeah.
Who was then kicked out of the wedding by somebody she went to school with.
Yes, who is somebody who takes on feelings very harshly. So
harshly.
Guess who's going to feel incredibly responsible?
Of course she is. Of course she is. And I get that. I totally get that. It is a fascinating thing to think about. Where this next, because I imagine this next episode is going to be incredibly depressing, as opposed, the vast majority of a perfect wedding is uplifting.
Yes. We're going to see two girls in our group really struggling with this.
Yeah, understandably so. I mean, Jem was there, witness to it.
Yeah,
tries to save her, but you see Abby's puffy purple face. At the end, there's no holding back from it.
Yeah,
it's there for you to see. It's nasty.
Yeah,
and it's crazy that I wasn't expecting death at all in this. For not teen death. I wasn't expecting teen death at
Yeah.
all in
Yes.
this
And
show.
this character who was just so kind of integral in pissing these characters off and causing chaos and drama and yeah, it's like and it's just this interesting kind of position to put yourself in kind of these thought
Yeah.
games that you can do where if somebody I absolutely hated in my personal life, somebody who put me down and made me feel terrible, if they died, you know how would I how
Yeah.
would I
How would
handle
you
that? How would
feel?
I process that? Especially if
Not
you
not
are
only
16 and a fellow 16-year-old dies, but it's somebody who bullied me. How do you process that?
right, and not only just like died in horrific circumstances
Yes.
and very, very unexpected circumstances
Yeah.
that everything just comes as pure shock. I mean, as it would, how do
Yeah.
you process that? I mean, death in my life has, is it ever expected? To a degree,
To a
perhaps
degree,
it
but
can be
still it doesn't
expected,
make it hurt any less. Yeah.
but it doesn't make it hurt any less. But I have personally never had to deal with
Like a freak
sudden
accident.
shocking death.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know how, that would affect me. I can only imagine, and we're going to be exploring that. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about,
Yep.
really. But craziness, absolute something I genuinely did not think would happen in Dawson's Creek.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So keeping you
I mean,
keeping you on your toes.
very much so. Very much so. It's good at doing that when you think you understand what's going on, when you think you get it, when you think you're all,
You're all comfortable
it's
and
all making
cozy, and we're in a
sense.
good track, and, maybe this is just a filler episode before something crazy happens. No, we're
And it's
getting more
and
crazy.
the only thing crazy that happens is always to do with romantic relationships.
Yes, that's
Like,
not
no, it isn't.
not
Not
straight
now.
up death. Yeah.
Could be
Yeah.
anything now.
Yes. So,
Like even Jack's
yeah.
coming out obviously felt significant, but that's based on personal emotion and romance and things
Yeah.
like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
This
Is about a
is,
freak accident. Yeah.
yeah, it's mad. It's almost, it's as if Cape Side was suddenly hit by a hurricane or something like that. It's just like, all right, okay, how do we deal with this?
Yeah.
Um, insane. But
Yeah.
things like this do happen, I suppose, in
Mhm.
melodrama TV, don't they?
Yeah.
I think everybody's complaint with soap operas a lot of the time is that all the Christmas specials, there's always either somebody dies or some sort of affairs revealed at a wedding.
It's like the
And
same stuff
it's,
every time. But
yeah.
also props to Monica Keena for playing Abby brilliantly.
Oh,
And props to her for getting, I think, 2 really impactful TV deaths, because she also is a very famous death on Grey's Anatomy.
yeah.
Um
Okay.
where some accident happens and she goes in with a pole, like a big like pillar stuck between, or a log or something shoved between her and another man. So her and
Oh,
another man
God.
are stuck together with something like skewered through them,
Oh,
and they're
God.
like staying alive. And the
Oh.
doctors have to try to, choose who's going to live and die. And they kind of
Oh,
make
God.
these people make a bond together, after being stuck together this whole time. So, yeah, it's also Monica Keena in this really huge, crazy Grey's Anatomy. And obviously she doesn't make it. But
No.
yeah.
No, it is.
Yeah, so
It
so
is
props
crazy
to
to
her
think
for
about.
getting 2 of the biggest, TV deaths.
Yeah. Oh, of this genre of TV, I suppose.
Yes, the kind of melodramatic show, yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, we'll leave it there.
Yeah,
Episodes
RIP.
19 and 20 of season 2 of Dawson's Creek will be the next episode of Discovering
Yeah.
Dawson's Creek. We'll try and make heads or tails of that. You know what's going on, but I don't know what's going on. I'll try and make heads or tails of that. I
Uh,
what anybody's going to be thinking. How depressed will people get?
Yeah.
Is it going to be just pure misery? I don't want it to just be pure misery, but you accept it and expect
There's a really interesting moment, particularly with Andie, that is just like speaks to who she is in a really interesting way.
I'm still expecting this tease you've given me of Dawson doing something so horrific at the end of this season that it's like Joey's out of his life forever. Now, this is episode 18 of 22.
Yeah.
And they're like the best they've ever been. The best.
Yeah,
but
everything.
Are like the most secure they've ever been right now.
Everything seems great. And yeah. I mean, I think you should expect it at this point.
I should expect it from Dawson. Of course I do. But what the hell happens over the course of 4 seconds for it to get to a point of literally never speaking to you again? Obviously, they will speak to each other again. It's a 6-season television show. But
I mean, yes, what happens in this finale sets a really big, interesting.
Is it just in the finale? Is it just in the finale that this particular horrible thing?
Yes, it's just in the finale, and this will set something else very interesting in motion.
Interesting. I can't even think what it would be. I genuinely can't think what it would be unless Dawson cheats on her, and they get back together, and Dawson cheats on her. It's the only possible thing
I don't think you'll ever guess.
What does he do? Does he murder somebody? What does he do? What does he possibly do?
Do you really want to know?
I don't want to wait. I'll give it that.
I don't want to wait.
It's Dawson's Creek, which you didn't even get the theme tune.
I did.
Do that on purpose.
Yes. Well, you know what? I am trying to watch less things on Amazon Prime, so I guess it's for the best. But I was watching Dawson's Creek on Prime, because that version did went back to "I Don't Want to Wait" as the song.
Right.
And so when I went to watch these 2 episodes, it was like now behind a paywall. Do you want to buy this episode for $3.99? So yeah, it's now not on Prime anymore for Prime members. So the only place that you can watch it is on Hulu. So I start playing it on Hulu. We get our opening scene before the credits, and then I hear the terrible replacement song. It's the worst song ever. I hate it so much. And so yes, if you watch it on Hulu, which is the only place you can stream it for free, it's the terrible old song. So yeah.
Oh dear.
It was just very cringeworthy.
Not good. Not good. We don't like that. We like the Dawson's Creek theme tune. It's a great song.
Yes, Paula Cole. She's great. Yeah.
Hey, well, there we go. Craziness. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another Discovering Dawson's Creek. Of course, Talking Ted Lasso alternates every Monday on the YouTube channel with this show. Do keep an eye out for that as well. Morgan hasn't seen TV Trucks on. Morgan hasn't seen Normal is obviously found on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed, as well as the main show It's a Wonderful Podcast itself, celebrating old movies every week, Wednesdays and Fridays on the main feed, wherever you do get your podcasts on all major platforms. Subscribe there, subscribe and ding your notification bell here. If you want to support us on Patreon, donate. Links are all down in the description. Merch is down there, social media is down there. Everything's been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen as well. So I think there may only be one thing left to do. And I can't even be excited about it because it's just, it leaves you in misery. Yeah. Unfortunately, when most of the things that have happened have been so nice over the course of these episodes.
Can't have it all. Can't have it all.
You can never have it all, can you? It would be too easy if you could. Count us down. I mean, R.I.P. Abby Morgan, I guess.
3, 2, 1.
Bye.